I'm Henry Holstege of the Older Learners Center at Grand Rapids Community College. I have with me today for conversation Dr. Harry Moody. Dr. Moody graduated from Yale, has a PhD from Columbia University. He's a past president of Elder Hostel. He is currently Director of Academic Affairs for the AARP. He has had hundreds of articles of a scholarly nature that have been printed. And we are very pleased, very happy, Harry, to have you in Grand Rapids today.
Delighted to be here.
Good. He has been invited by the Older Learners Center to talk about civic engagement and to talk about the older worker, the worker 55 and older. Dr. Moody, what is civic engagement? What is this all about?
It has lots of different definitions. For some people, it means voting. Maybe for others, it means advocacy. Maybe going to one of these town hall meetings that we've heard about a lot lately. For me, I like to define it in much simpler terms: recycling your life cycle, making use of your distinctive skills and attributes, your strengths, in a new way. Your chapter is not over. The new chapter is just beginning. So that's how I think of it.
And when you say your chapter isn't over, sounds like you're referring there to older people?
Yes, I am. People like you. And listen, I'm just less than a year short of Medicare, so I'm in that category too. And
you're a young guy.
I'm a young guy. Okay, I'll accept that compliment. But no, we will all have to be thinking about the next chapter. And that, to me, is what an encore career is all about. That's a term that my good friend Mark Friedman has used, encore careers. And that, I think, I pay tribute to him and to his organization, Civic Ventures, because they've really developed this idea of civic engagement.
They have, but now what if an older person says, look, Dr. Moody, you want me to be involved. I've worked all my life to have leisure, to goof off, to have a hobby. Now you want me to be involved in civic affairs?
Well, that's good too. All these things are good. As you mentioned, I used to be chairman of the board of Elder Hostel. Elder Hostel is a program for lifelong learning and for travel. That's great. We want people to pursue those things that interest them, that inspire them, that direct them. But we also don't want society to miss out on those strengths. Take yourself. Did you have a career as a TV broadcaster? I don't think you did you? You were a professor.
You can tell with my hesitant talking, I didn't know.
You didn't know, but you do now, you see? And that's the point. So I don't know what my next career, maybe I'll be a TV broadcaster too, or maybe I'll go into something else. I don't know. But I think that's really the dimension of giving back. And you don't spend all your time as a professional TV broadcaster, but you took that up in your own later years. And people have lots of talents that they don't know. They can help others give back. That doesn't mean that's the only thing that they do. But certainly, we want to be looking to those skills, those strengths.
I really like that attitude. I think it's terrific.
Yeah.
But is there anything special older people can give? Does it make a difference if they're 80 or 70 or 92?
Well, it depends on your health, it depends on your skills, it depends on where you are, so everybody hasn't got the same strength. But I like to tell the story of my father, who, when he retired, at 65, by the way, from being a bank executive, what did he do? He moved to Florida. But he didn't do golf or shuffleboard or anything else like that. He did two things. He moved to Orlando, where he became an employee of Disney World, and his job was being a greeter, finding lost children. Okay? Not something that he did as a bank executive. And the second thing he did was sign up for courses at the local college, Florida Central University. And eventually he wound up on the front page of the local newspaper, having taken more courses than any senior citizen in history. So he did two things. He was giving back in a job, of course, not a volunteer position, but he was helping. And number two, he was learning and growing. So I think I like to follow the example of my father and think of that as a kind of an inspiration for me of things that I might
I think it's a great illustration. Yeah. He was a great role model for you.
He was.
But now, what if some older people say, Dr. Moody, are you trying to use us? What if I would like a part-time job? You want us to work for nothing?
Well, some people want to, quote, work for nothing. And in fact, our whole society, let's take the academic world that you and I know so well, would fall apart if we didn't have people volunteering to review books and write articles and write recommendations for people. But that's true at the local level too. How would we have voting if we didn't have the volunteers sitting there to register you at voting time? So our whole society works by unpaid labor. That's good. That's something we need more of. But many people, let's be honest, they need to continue working, including people maybe a little younger than me, those aging boomers. Maybe their 401k plan became a 201k plan last year. So they need to work longer too. And that's also part of giving back. That's also very, very valid.
I like very much what you are saying, but what if some people who are listening are thinking, I would like to be involved. How do I get involved? Where do I start? What do I do?
Boy, you've put your finger on the real problem. We've got two issues here. One is the work issue, where it's hard to find the jobs. And let's be honest, there is such a thing as age discrimination. And there are some tricks and trades, we're going to talk about that this evening, for how to overcome some of those barriers for the people who need to work and want to continue working. There's also barriers to volunteering. People may not know where the opportunities are.
That's right.
So there are many challenges there. We've got to do better as a society. I agree with that.
Are there any areas for volunteers in which older people would excel?
Yes, I think so. And not just, well, let's put it this way. We don't want to just have people licking envelopes or that type of thing, although that's legitimate and it's needed. But we want to ask people, what is your best strength where you can distinctively contribute? And some of that may lie in the area of mentoring and helping younger people. Or perhaps it'll be different for each person. I think that's the key point. People have to ask themselves, what's their strength? And then connect their distinctive strength and ability with what's needed out there. We have so many needs in our society. Presumably most of the people who are listening to this broadcast are speaking English. How about English as a second language? We have many immigrants in this society.
And they need a lot of tutoring. I think it's a great idea.
They need help, they need tutoring. I actually used to teach English as a second language in the night schools of New York City. If we'd had more volunteers, we could have done a much better job.
That's a great idea for people out there. And our hospitals, medical clinics need a lot of volunteers.
They're overburdened. I myself recently joined the board of hospice in Montgomery County, Washington, D.C., where I live. And my task there, I immediately joined the fundraising committee. Not everybody likes fundraising. I happen to like it. And
that's a talent if you do, because many people find that very difficult.
They do, and that's why I did it, because I said, well, this is something that I can do. But some people you may not be on a board, but you can visit, friendly visiting. We have so many programs in this society where people need contact, not just people who are dying, but people who are lonely, people who need help. So there are many, many opportunities out there. That doesn't have to be what all you do in your life. There needs to be time for fun, too.
Now, this term, civic engagement, to what extent does that also include activities in churches where many older people are involved?
Absolutely. I used to be the director of a national program called Faith in Action, run by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Still exists, by the way. And the genius of that program is that it brought together churches and synagogues to work together on an interfaith basis. No discrimination, not just given to people of that particular faith, but it's something that all the different faiths hold in common, helping your neighbor. Very simple things sometimes, delivering meals, taking people to the doctor. Those are important things, and everybody has the capacity, most people have the capacity to drive a car, to speak English. We don't have to have great skills to do these things.
I like your enthusiasm. I hope everyone listening in saying, I want to be involved. But now some older people are listening in saying, I would like to be involved, but right now I am struggling financially.
Sure.
Doctor, can I obtain a job? Where would I look for work? I'm willing to work part-time. How do you feel about the older worker?
This is one of the big challenges right now because of this terrible recession that we've been through, and we're still in terms of the job market. The time will come when older workers may be more needed because there are fewer younger workers in the labor force. So we have to look to the future, and people are going to have to probably be thinking about new jobs that they didn't do before. That means they're going to need new skills. That means lifelong learning. Community colleges are going to play a big part in this. You may not find the job that was the one that you used to have. I'll tell you a secret. I was trained, I have a PhD in medieval philosophy. My first job was working for Citicorp, the bank, okay?
That's a big switch.
That's a big switch.
Yeah.
So that was a big shock for me. And we're working with community colleges that are retraining people. The state has many auto workers. Those jobs may not be coming back. They're going to need to find new skills, just like I had to find them as a medievalist to work for a bank.
Yeah, you're talking about new skills, but say you're dealing with an older person, he's 68 years old, his savings just plummeted. Can he learn new technology?
Depends what the technology is. Probably not Adobe, computer skills or things like that, but there are other things that people can learn. And the notion that you can't teach an old dog new tricks is completely wrong. People have what's called neuroplasticity, the ability to learn new things. But it also involves skills that they've had all their life. And many of the older workers have lots of social skills and abilities to work with people. And those are the things that we need to take advantage of.
But do older workers have the health to be the good employee?
Some do. Many do. I'm not talking, when I speak about older workers and jobs, I'm not talking about taking sick people and taking them out of nursing homes and hospitals and putting them on the assembly line.
That would be a surprise.
That would be a surprise. We're not talking about that. Although I will tell you that some of the great programs involve homebound people who are so frail they cannot leave their home, but they want to volunteer. They can be engaged and have been in telephone reassurance, calling people on the telephone.
Now,
so they learn
go
how to
over
give.
that again. What you just said is amazing. For older people who are frail, state that again.
What it means is that even if you are homebound and you can talk on the telephone, there are other people who need to have that call once a day. I know this. My sister's a geriatric nurse for the homebound, and she can't get to all the people. We're not talking about replacing the nurses, but we're talking about giving that call, that telephone reassurance. So people can do very small things. You know, Mother Teresa once said, she was talking about people want to do great things. She said, we cannot do great things. We can only do little things with great love.
Oh, that's a great emphasis.
It's a wonderful statement.
So virtually anyone who's cognitively adept can be involved. But now we're talking about the older worker.
Yes.
Isn't that taking work away from the younger worker?
No. This is a big illusion. This is what's called the lump of labor theory, that there's only a certain amount of work out there, and if we engage older people, then the younger people won't have a job. Many of the jobs and the tasks that are needed they go begging, okay? We're certainly talking about the volunteer area, but in other areas, there's a need for that too. I do not believe that there's a fixed sum of work out there, and it's a zero-sum game if one person does the work. It may be that we're going to need to have government involved, businesses involved, certainly we do, so that we begin to open up these job opportunities. But the work needs to be done, absolutely.
Now, if you hire an older worker, will the cost of medical insurance go up for the employer?
Well, this is an issue for employers, and it's an issue for people who are maybe 55 to 65, those potential employees. And that's an issue that they worry about, and it's one of the reasons why we at AARP are so concerned to develop some form of health reform. And again, there's lots of legitimate debate about what it should look like, but certainly we need to remove that barrier on the part of employers who worry about this. For people above 65, they may be eligible for Medicare, and that's less of an issue. But you're right, you've put your finger on an issue that employers are worried about, and we understand why they're worried.
Now, this gets to be a little technical, but if an employer hired a person 65 or older, they have Medicare, then the cost of the medical insurance for that worker would go down?
Well, it's complicated because you have what's called coordination of benefits, so that you have several different insurance streams paying into it, Medicare as well as perhaps a private insurance plan. But the point is that we at least have figured out how to provide some form of health insurance for the 65-plus workers. We need to do the same for people 50 to 65. A third of our members at AARP are in that age group, 50 to 65. That's one of the reasons why we're very concerned about some form of health reform. Again, they'll debate on what form it should take.
Sure, but the worker laid off at 58 with no health insurance,
they're in trouble.
They're in great trouble.
They're in big trouble, and that's what we're hearing about. And there's lots of stories in the newspapers about this, and we need to find a solution.
Now, dealing again with the older worker, where would that person, and this is a tough question, you aren't going to give a quick answer, I know that, but there are older people listening in saying, I am worried my savings are down. Where can I try to find work? Where do I go?
The jobs are not always going to be in the place where you're living now. I just came from North Dakota yesterday. They have problems. They have plant closings, but they also have a booming economy because they've just discovered oil in North Dakota. Could be the new Texas. It's hard for people to move, and yet some people do. They'll move to Florida or Arizona, certainly is that image of retirement. But today we're going to probably be facing the prospect of people having to move in some cases, certainly the prospect of retraining. But people are going to look for retraining that's short-term, that has a payoff, and they have to be very careful about what they get into to make sure that it really is a certificate or a skill that actually will have a payoff. So that's something we're very concerned about at AARP also.
And as you said, to have a little plug here, community colleges can do a lot here.
They are on the front lines, and that's one of the reasons I'm here, because Mike Faber from Grand Rapids Community College has invited me, and I said in the group just before this that you really have a jewel of a program there. And of course the program, the college is bursting at the seams right now, we know that. But that's, people are voting with their feet, and they're recognizing that they know that they need skills. And community colleges are a distinctive American innovation.
They are.
And we should be proud of that.
Now, are there any occupations that older people ought not to have? Now, you know, as I do, there are very few occupations where because of age you no longer can continue in that occupation.
Right.
Pilots, being an airline pilot is one.
Yes.
Being a police officer is another.
They have early retirement, that's right. There's physical demands, being a miner. We could multiply some of those occupations. But you know, as a sociologist, that we've, in the last 40 or 50 years, we've seen the structure of jobs change. And so we have so many jobs now that do not demand that physical labor in quite that way. But they can take advantage of the social skills. And I put an emphasis on that, because that's important, certainly for retail trade. It's important for travel and hospitality, even for financial services, and certainly for healthcare. Well, I've just ticked off a few of what I call silver industries that are likely to grow in an aging society.
In fact, the research that I have seen, older persons are better at those interrelationships.
Precisely.
They're more mature, they're calmer, they're patient.
Days Inn is one example that's specifically a motel company that actually looks for retired people to manage their motels, to work in their motels, because they know that these are typically folks who are not going to get flustered. They're good at dealing with people. Again, that's a generalization. It's not true for everybody. But it points to something that actually grows and ripens with age.
Yeah, that's true.
Instead of being lost.
Just like in regard to police work, some of it is very physical out on the street.
Yep.
But in regard to the older officer that has to just interrelate, the older person can really be very competent at that sort of thing.
To resolve a conflict?
Yes, very much so.
Maybe detective work? I can think of lots of things. So.
Now, I don't want to just jump in here and get you a little off guard, but if demographically we look ahead, for the baby boomers, 80% want to continue employment.
Yes, that's what the statistics say.
And everything I've seen in regard to the data, there's going to come a point, once we get through this recession, we are going to have a shortage of employees.
It could happen. Could very well
it's going to depend on the economy. But if the economy goes back to where it was, there's going to be a need for employees.
There will be.
And those baby boomers, I think, will be able to continue working.
Yes.
I know most of them would prefer working part-time.
Yes.
Not full-time.
We'll have to have flexible, more flexible job arrangements.
I think that's coming. That's only a matter of time.
It is coming. Yes.
But now, where is the AARP in regard to medical benefits for those people between 55 and 65 who are partially employed?
We need to have different forms of health care and of insurance, and that's one of the reasons why we do want to work, and we do work with insurance companies to encourage developing new policies like this. Some of this will come from the private sector, some will have to come from the public sector, from government, but it's probably going to be a partnership.
And gets to be very complex in regard to who is on what side. And I feel for you at AARP, you're sort of at the center of that debate and discussion.
Well, we are, and it's very vigorous right now. We know that. But at the end of the day, this problem's not going to go away. You see, Medicare, if we don't do something about it within the next 5 to 10 years, it will reach the point where the trust fund runs out of money. And that's a problem. Certainly, in a year, less than a year, I'll be eligible for Medicare. So I worry about that.
And you will join it.
I will join it. And it's a great program, but we need to make some changes in order to make sure it's sustainable for future generations. Ditto for Social Security. We can do that, by the way. It's not rocket science, but we need to get on
I tend to agree. I think 8 reasonable people over 8 weeks could really get some progress if we take ideology out of it a little bit.
Yeah, we need to compromise on some of these things.
We do.
Yeah.
But now, looking again at that older, aging population, they want to be involved.
Yes.
They can be involved in volunteer work.
Yes.
Some might be involved in part-time work. In addition to that, as you said, they have a right for leisure. I don't want to leave this program with an emphasis that people must be involved in volunteers. I tend to agree with you. They should. I think it's good for them psychiatrically.
Yeah.
And I think some should be employed. They need the money.
Yes, that's true too.
But they also have to be aware they need time for relaxation, enjoyment.
You know who has taught me this lesson? My wife. She's 62, 2 years younger than me, and she's taken early retirement. And she says, she was a teacher, by the way, very talented, but she said, I'm retired now. So she has time for the things that are important in her life, for travel, for friends, for spiritual growth, intellectual discovery.
That's great.
She's taught me an important lesson. I tend to be a bit of a workaholic. So.
And hopefully she can slow you down a little bit so that you can travel. It's hard for a guy like you.
It's hard for a guy like
me.
It's true.
Okay, any final emphases you'd like to give to that audience out there?
Well, I think we're going to solve these problems on healthcare reform and Social Security and all the rest of it. You know, Winston Churchill once said, you can always count on the Americans to do the right thing after they've exhausted all the alternatives. So right now we're very preoccupied with all the alternatives, but at the end of the day, I think we'll solve these problems and move ahead. I'm an optimist.
I like your optimism. And I think you would say for them, keep involved, have social relationships.
Yes, I would.
And I think you involved. Everybody needs love in life as you go through life, the reciprocity, the relationship you have with your wife. And for many people, they can find this kind of relationship volunteering.
Yes.
You know, some people are worried when they retire from work, they're going to lose those relationships at work, and they do. And many miss those relationships.
Yes.
But by volunteering, new relationships develop.
They do.
And as a result, very quickly, if they are involved,
they got to be involved.
They do. I think both you and I feel the involved life is the healthy life.
It is.
Without putting an emphasis, you have to be a workaholic to do it.
We need balance.
And you don't need guilt if you're not that involved. And I would see nothing wrong, and I don't think you would, if people want to take a year off and go to Europe or really concentrate on a hobby. My only worry would be that they get used to a sedentary life. And that, I think, is a destructive life.
Well, we need exercise, we need engagement, and that's what keeps us healthy and makes life worth living.
That's right. And good nutrition.
That too.
And watching our lifestyle and get involved, be a volunteer, work part-time if you want to and if you can get the job. And both Dr. Moody and myself would wish you well. Don't give up. Continue looking. Develop relationships with others. We wish you well. We come from Grand Rapids Community College, and we wish you a healthy aging process.